subject seems to be quite elaborate and something that I'm still trying to find out what is the new perspective and modern perspective of sound in cinema. I would like to make it a more interactive section actually. I would rather like to have a conversation. If you just go back to what is film sound, there is a whole lot of discussion that I heard from the music engineer's perspective as to what is good sound. We always perceive music as something that is very good, is very feel good. The recordings are very good. It gives us some sense of peace of mind. There's an emotional quotient attached to music. That is not the biggest challenge a film sound person deal with. Music is the biggest challenge for him because music comes with a ready to order, emotional quotient. That is something as a film sound person he wants to deal with. And because in film, in storytelling, you want to use sound to the best story experience, to your advantage, that you are able to control the melodrama. Because sometimes you just want the audience eyes to be welled up, not to cry, So you should be able to manifest and manipulate the emotion. That's the main aspect of a film sound person. So he has to deal with so many things. So what is good or what is usable is very relative things for him. What is noise and what is sound is something that he has to investigate in every sequences, every film context, So I feel the understanding of sound per se in general, vis-a-vis the spoken words in a film, vis-a-vis the ambient, the sense of temporal element in a film, or the music, or sound effects, or sound design, or Foley. He deals with many things, many aspects, many thoughts, and he gives a very coherent view, which basically complement the storytelling, what has been written. When you say there is a narrative graph, the sound person is actually parallelly dealing with what we call a loudness graph. This goes hand in hand. So what is modern perspective about it? I'll just throw some light on the historical aspect and then I'll throw the session to you, so audience you can interact. When sound came into film, there was only one source, and the source was behind the screen and right in the center of the screen. Historically, film sound used to get recorded in photographic medium. There were far more limitations, so there were, in terms of dynamics, in terms of frequency responses, there were limitations in which the storytellers had to deal with it. And as the technology progressed, we moved from photographic medium to magnetic medium. And films like, there were films that has come up where stereo microphoning technology was tried and tested in storytelling. If you know, the case of Sholay, for example, it was the first, 6-track stereo that we played in Indian cinema, which was not a photographic medium sound, but it is a magnetic medium which is pasted on photographic medium, it played along with the picture. Then came the technology where we could have stereo sound in photographic medium, which is Dolby SR that came in. And from the Dolby SR, we went into Dolby Digital, wherein we had digital sound, 8-track stereo sound. Now, we were always limited with a 2 mil space within a photographic medium. We had to record sound within the 2 mil of space, which is given by a 35 mm picture. We have tried and tested all possible ways of accommodating sound within the outside the picture area. So formats were designed by Dolby. There is something called Sony Dynamic Digital Sound, which is called SDDS, which also tried to use spaces outside, the 35mm format. Then came Dolby Digital, where they tried to encode sound within the sprockets area. So with all these formats, the normal optical mono sound, the Dolby SR Digital, and the SDDS, and the Dolby Digital, plus the timecode track for the DTS, which is straight away went into a CD, wherein the program was stored on a CD, which is locked into timecode. We actually ran out of space. So there could be many things happening in the picture, and the picture moved from a normal photographic medium, wherein picture was shot in photographic medium, converted it into digital medium. They did the post-production in the digital medium, and came back to photographic medium for the final married print. The sound people moved from magnetic to digital, wherein the digital audio workstations were used for post-production, and we eventually mixed it. But again, we went back to digital medium, for a very, very, very long time. If you look at the history of sound, for more than a century, we were stuck with photographic medium. We were stuck with film. It's almost like an umbilical cord between picture and sound. Then there came technology, computer graphics and other digital medium came in, wherein picture actually moved away from a photographic medium at all. So was sound. So when sound moved away, that we didn't need a photographic medium for sound recording and mastering and eventually reproduction. And the whole problem of the sense of dynamics, and the frequency response limitations were taken out of our head. We were actually dealing with an open media framework. That's what we were in. Then again, the film people, the film sound engineers, were dealing with the very, very basic question of sound. How sound is perceived. What is cinema? Cinema is a continuum of time and space. If a picture that you see on a screen is a two-dimensional exposition of a space, sound becomes a temporal element of that space. So a cinema experience becomes an experience of time and space. And because the sound is giving you the temporal element, it become a far more powerful tool. The reason being, a picture which extends or expands itself in a three-dimensional space, wherein it projects outside the screen into the audience and creates a three-dimensional space in a 3D film, for example. Or if you're limiting ourselves to a two-dimensional film, it expands from left to right in a space. Any sound that you add, and if you can say that that picture is as an abstract image, the moment we put sound to that abstract image, what is abstract become meaningful. We are trying to we put meaning to it. What is abstract become tangible, because sound defines a space. Sound defines the time. It could be time of the day, it could be a period, it could be summer, or it could be if you put a rain sound, it has become the monsoon. If it becomes so by way of putting a sound to an abstract image, we are actually concretizing the meaning of that image. Now, what is the experience of that image? That sound allows you to go inside the picture. The picture gets far more bigger meaning, or it allows the audience to go inside the picture when you have a continuous sound which is supplementing the emotional experience of what is evolving, what is exposed over as an exposition in a scene, in a sequence in a film. But so sound, by the experience of it, is very immersive in nature. even when it was a mono source. When it became stereo, when it became multi-track, the sound became immersive. So what is this immersive audio that we talk about today? The audio formats that we talk about as Dolby Digital or Oro 11.1 or IM sound, any of those sound formats which has been called as immersive. But if you look at it historically, the sound by itself was immersive in its experience. So what are these formats doing? That is the modern aspect of film sound. That you take the narrative of a picture to an immersive level, wherein that immersive nature of the sound can be physically be experienced in a given space. That a two-dimensional space or a three-dimensional space which involve in the storytelling of a film can be extended out into the audience space, wherein geometrically those spaces can be defined, and those definition of the geometrical spaces can be incorporated into the storytelling, wherein we can make more value added, production value to the film. So that is the modern aspect of film sound. There are formats that experience that do a great deal of experiments in this, which of course is you have heard and you have experienced Dolby Atmos and Oro 11.1 or 14.1 or the IMAX format or the IM sound, which has been taken over by Dolby and taken their technology into it. IM sound does not exist anymore now. That is the new trend, and that is a new aspect of film sound. Coming to this, why still film sound is restricted by what is the narrative aspect of the film, where a film sound person has to deal with so many other aspects of sound, so many other sounds people are giving it to him. Like for example, music, I said, Indian cinema predominantly, very, very predominantly music driven. The storytelling is music driven. Indian cinema has evolved from its dance drama tradition, so it has its own sense of idiom. But at the same time, Indian cinema is also very, very dialogue oriented, very, very spoken. We speak our cinema. To a certain extent, the mainstream Hollywood also speak the cinema. The story is spoken, but I feel very, very tragically, the spoken aspect of the filmmaking, the recording aspect of that has been considered very, very badly. If you walk into any area rooms in this country, it is very pathetic. You see that you see them still working with the Pro Tools LE, and there's no higher end recording chain has been given. There's no greater deal of thought process has been given to that recording chain. Whereas music that goes behind this dialogue, has been given the highest rate of quality standards and highest sophistication of quality of working has been given to them. So a film sound person in India is every day he's dealing with this contradiction of what is good and what is bad, and what is noise and what is not noise, and what is good for a story and what is not good for the story. And umpteen number of times he has to make choices between what has been given to him, thousands of tracks, which that includes sound designs and foley's and ambiences and music and background music and songs and sing sound and dialogues and areas, and he's constantly making choices. And I think having a very, very holistic idea, viewpoint about sound in cinema is very, very needed, and it become very, very decisive in shaping up your mix. I mean, end of the day, a film sounds good when people don't actually notice about it. And a film works well when you don't see the cameraman, you don't see the sound designer, you don't see the editor. You just experience it. So we are people. What is the modern perspective? I'm coming back to the tagline of what they have asked me to speak on. The modern perspective is that to hide behind all the skills that you have, hide behind all the technological innovations that you have at your disposal, and create a composition. That composition comes from various aspects. The composition comes from the scenes enacted by the actors. So the actor become your tool. Where those scenes were enacted become your another tool, another parameter. How you want to enhance or how you want to project that into what space you want to project that become another parameter. And the pace of a film is already been, to a certain extent, has been decided by the movements of the camera, the way the film has been cut by the editors, and the way that a sound designer cuts in sound, or sound editor cuts in sound. So that is another aspect. The pace of the film becomes another aspect. Then you have a music composer who has given his interpretation of an emotional quotient of a scene. So you have to deal with what is a ready emotion which has been given to you. So with all these parameters, the perspective is to create another composition that involves performance by an actor, performance by Foley artists, performance by sound designers, performance by sound editors, performance by the re-recording engineers. All this put together, and performance by the composers and various musicians, you come out with another composition which goes hand in hand with the narrative aspect of the cinema. While doing all this, you stay away from a noticing platform of recognition by the audience. So to me, that becomes a very, very key and modern, a key aspect of the modern storytelling through sound. There are formats that are available at your disposal, which we can talk on a one-to-one level. What is that is available to you? And there are sensor spaces that are available to you, which is different from the space that you see. And the discretion that you take as an artist, that the discretion that you arrive at, where combining your artistry and your technological knowledge is what actually makes a soundtrack that you perceive in a film as an emotional experience. To me, that is something. A lot depends on your the knowledge of the technology, the knowledge of the systems that you need, the story that you're dealing with, and what you want to do with the story that you have in your hand. So it's an amalgamation of all these things, and that is to say it's not an easy task to do that, because the kind of elements that you need to balance at various aspects, various time, because unfortunately sound post comes at the fag end of filmmaking, where everybody has done away with their work, and also everyone has identified their problems. The actors have their problems, the directors have their problems, the cameraman has their problems. All these problems that you're dealing with at one level, because sound mixing in a filmmaking, VFX has their own problems. The director is constantly dealing with that. The re-recording mixing of a film become a problem-solving process. And within that problem-solving process, you have to find your artistry, and you have to find what is that you need to do with your craft. That becomes a very big human and technical and skill management, you know. Um, yeah. Yeah, actually, I don't have nothing much to say. If you would like to ask me anything, I'm very happy to answer questions. No questions? I can go home? Okay, finally one.
Hello, sir. My name is Amit. I am film sound enthusiast, and I'm currently a student of film sound engineering. What I wanted to ask was a lot of VFX being used in films these days. In terms of defining spaces, as you said in sound design, so do you get a VFX cut while you're doing a particular shot, sound design for a particular shot, or are you doing it without the VFX and the director has given you the freedom to do it in terms of defining the space when it comes to room tones, or yeah? So that's what my question is.
Check. Yeah. Unfortunately, VFX cannot exist without sound. You know, what makes a VFX believable is how natural the sound is. Yeah, there's a constant interaction with the VFX supervisor and the sound designer. I have not much dealt with the Indian VFX supervisors because I hardly see them speak about sound. Their knowledge of sound is very, very weak. You know, so their VFX compositions become. I think it's a drawback to a great extent. But I have interacted. I mean, there's a lot of VFX supervisors abroad who has interacted with me. When I was working in film like RA1, for example, in RA1 there's the fighting tool between RA1 and G1 in the film is the energy ball, you know. So when we were shooting, the VFX supervisor came down to India and we were interacting, and he would give me the physics of what he's doing. That when the ball is being thrown, at what velocity is that ball is moving, and what is the mass of that ball. So I could calculate the momentum of that ball. That would be the impact. So the sound effect is being created by calculating what is the momentum of that. So he would give me technical data of the size of the ball, the speed, the velocity of the ball, and what is the impact it is going to create. How much of the dent it is going to create. Like, is it a crater or is it, to that level in detail. So which made me design new sound where it would make it far more believable. When we were working in Kochadian, for example, and Kochadian was, everything is located in computer graphics. Everything is so except the actors' faces, including, actors' faces were motion capture. Except that everything was created in computer graphics. So when we were dealing with sound, let's take one aspect. This place is too cold. Is there any way we can turn it down, the AC a bit, please? When we were dealing with Foley, for example, there was a costume designer who had done all the drawings, and so I had to ask her, okay, this is the costume, that I see this costume in the computer. I see them wearing, but I need to feel it. I need to touch it so that I have to create the sound of it. So what is it? Is it Kanjivaram silk? Or is it cotton? How is it woven? What is the material? So she actually had gone back to Chennai and went into places, and she actually sourced me material. 1 meter of, what Rajinikanth is wearing, or clothes, what Deepika was wearing. Everything, pieces of clothes was given to me, So, because we need real things. Because what is VFX, what has been drawn on the computer, is something else. If that is to be believed, that we have to put in real elements, and that real sound makes it believable. And floor, for example. So I used to ask Soundarya, what is a floor? Is it mitti? Or is it grass? Is it bush? What is it? So if there is grasses, then there could be crickets there. What is above? So we used to analyze what are the layers on the floor? What is above the floor? If you have trees, what kind of trees is it? What kind of birds would sit there? What is the kind of air there? Is it a valley? Is water flowing nearby? Then what is the nature of the wind would be? So we would break down each element like that. So I would get, when we were working in Kochirian, I would get not only, of course the VFX would come in layers because it's all a motion capture picture. So I would get layers of details about the floor. Is it cemented floor? In those times there was no cemented. Was it stone? What kind of stone? Is it marble? Is it granite? Those details were used to come in as layers to me. So I have a version of a picture just with 6 layers of ambience. And I have a picture where the actor's face is in one corner, where he's speaking the dialogue, where the rest of the screen is filled with the layers of ambience, the layers of the floor. It could be layers of the building. It could be, anything. It could be anything. If you're dealing with a fight sequence, then it could be movement. Could be one layer. The weapons could be another layer. So we would get things like that. Drawings from and we work with that. So yes, very much. Without interaction with the sound guy, I don't think you can make a VFX which is believable. Yes, please.
Hello, sir. My name is Mohit. I just wanted to ask you a question. Like you mentioned that music or score does play a big role in film. While I saw Slumdog Millionaire, there's this scene when the riots are happening, and the score that kicks in, I think that it was the sound design part of it was so homogeneous with the score that I couldn't feel a big difference in it, and unless until I analyze it. So, do you have some certain kind of rapport with the music director or the one who's going in the score for it to make it that way?
Yeah, you can be analyzed in 2 levels. One, you are the best buddy of the music composer, or you're the worst enemy of him. In 2 aspects you can look at it. Depending upon where you are, you can just place yourself. With me and Rahman, we have great respect to each other's work. In fact, me and Rahman never interacted when we were working in Slumdog. He scored and gave the tracks. And I'll tell you something very, very shocking. In Hollywood, music composer is not allowed to sit in the mix. He's thrown out of the mixing room. Yeah. And it is required. And in India, they sit on your shoulder. The last Tamil film that I have done, this music director put an engineer of him who has no clue about surround mixing. He has no clue about surround mixing. And he delivered me 1 stem of surround, which is completely clashing with the rest of the elements. And I don't have any way I can tweak things around. Certain frequencies are clashing. Okay, you just need to touch it down or EQ it. Or when you're working in surround, you can move them from the front. You can move them back. I can't do anything. So I started splitting tracks. And he just doesn't understand. I'm splitting tracks, giving the same orientation, so that I can at least deal with some images. Because we were working in 7.1, so in 7.1, the images doesn't work in 7.1. So you have to split it into 5.1. So you split it into 5.1 and take into another stereo and pan it back into back surround. This guy doesn't understand it. I'm telling him this is exactly the same thing. The 7.1 is being split into 5.1 and at stereo. and it's been panned into the same tracks. He says, no, you go back to 7.1. So finally, I didn't want to offend anybody in the mix, because I believe filmmaking is a very, very collective art. And it's everybody's work. You have to protect everyone's work. So I would listen to him, and we will pack up at 9 o'clock. We'll go home, and I'll come back. I'll come back to the studio, take his stems, remix his music, and so that the film can work. End of the day, I have to look at what works. Just in the last February, I did a mix in Hollywood, wherein the music director comes, opens the studio door, and peeps in. And he asked me, I am not allowed here, but can I just listen once? I said, come on, Neil, this is your film. Come on, come in. Come sit. No. I am not in Hollywood. We are not allowed. But my mix, you are allowed. Come in. So I don't think Rahman was ever in the mix room of Slumdog. So Danny is able to use the music that he has done. To me, Rahman has done far bigger work, far beautiful work. I think Slumdog was one film where his music was used very well. So you perceive his music the way it should be perceived. The sequence that you're referring to, for example, the riot scene, one of my favorite scenes. The riot scene had music right from the beginning till the end. Okay? The riot scene is something that Danny has been speaking to me right from when we were shooting. When we were shooting that sequence in Dharavi and in Penn. He used to come and tell me in my ear that when the boy is under the water, I don't know how many of you have seen Slumdog. When the boy is in the water and when he comes up, as if his ear is full of water and he doesn't hear it properly. So everything goes as if the water is running through his ear. That's a perspective in the film. So that you see the mob charging in. His mother gets killed. They fall. And then we cut inside the crowd. That's when the sound comes back in the natural. So we are able to play perspective. By way of doing that, we could go into the psyche of the boy. We could go into the head of the boy. So in filmmaking, by way of using sound, we could actually shift point of views. We can go inside a character, come outside, become a bird view. So we could do anything and everything. So as that scene progresses, you hear the music slowly kicking in, just the piano track, very, very rhythmically. A piano played like a rhythm. And then as they get into the alley, where you see the young girls start following, that's when the rhythm kicks in. So these are individually we have manipulated all those elements. So that's what I said. A composition is given to you which has a lot of ready emotion. But you as a filmmaker want to control that emotion. Then you should be able to deal with that elements separately. You should have a full control over it. And for that you need to have a full understanding of what they have done. What does a composition means. And so by end of it becomes another composition. A composition that goes hand in hand, that goes in concurrence with the narrative graph of the film. Did I answer you?
One more question, please. How do you manage the tonal quality of the dialogues that you have recorded at Sync Sound, and it is, especially the impulses of the room impulses and the room tones of it on the dialogue?
Predominantly, dialogue becomes the which defines the quality of your track. Because that is what you relate as an audience. How your dialogue is heard in a film becomes the perception of the qualitative aspect of the film. And unfortunately, in India, very, very sadly, very, very least expertise, least interest least technical fineness is been attributed to dialogue recording. You look at a Tarantino's film, you will hear dialogue like nobody's business, you know, because it is written dialogue. You take Inglorious Bastard, open to the first scene. The first scene set up everything. You know, the moment you hear him talking, that's it. The film is set. Who gives attention to like that? You take any Coen Brothers films. You take anybody films, any Hollywood film, any serious filmmakers in the West. They have given utmost importance to dialogue recording. Because written dialogue is a performance. And if the performance is not captured in its most authentic way, what is the point? So that's what you resort to live sound. And here we replace most of the sound. And, you know, like now, of course, 30-40% of Indian cinema is live sound. And I feel that's glorified pilot recording now. Very, very little aspect has been given to sound. Because the attention that you give it to a cameraman in deciding what is the visual aspect of the film, you don't give 1/100th of that attention to the sound man, you know, because sadly, very, very sadly, sound becomes something that you can replace. You know, they don't understand when an actor performs, he's actually bearing his soul out. And that gets imprinted. You cannot change that. You know, if you have the serious understanding of filmmaking, and if you are a good filmmaker, you will take utmost care in capturing that in its best possible, best authentic, best technical point of view. So I think I'm pretty disappointed with the way that has been. Like I was telling you earlier, you walk into any area room in Chennai or Bombay, very few, except barring very few studios in Bombay. Bombay is still better. In Chennai and rest of the country, you will see Pro Tools LE working like it's obsolete. Even Pro Tools are ashamed of saying that they made LE. But we use an LE system for dialogue recording. And one good old Nyman U87. That's it. You don't have a choice of microphones because you're dealing with actors' performance. That's far more important than anything else. You know? And whereas background score, which supposedly goes behind this dialogue, will have the latest HD, will have the latest SSL logic consoles, will have the Neve 48 NR or the what works. They will have all the microphones, they will have all the best rooms, they will have all the plugins, everything. Dialogue, LE. You know? It's such a shame. It is such a shame. But there are directors and filmmakers who are educated, who understood the possibility of sound, have given a great deal of, that last Hollywood film that I've done with David Womack, the guy who made Life of Pi. It's called Love Sonia. Yeah, he wouldn't shoot until I say, this is good for me. He wouldn't make and take okay unless I say, good for sound. You know? And they see the difference. When I was working the whole entire sound design and sound edit is done in my studio in Bombay, but the mix, I go out, sensitive films, I go out and go to LA to mix it. And the guy was asking me, oh, which microphone did you use? I said, why? Is it sounding different? Oh, yeah, it's sounding different. I'm sure you have used this microphone. So they would go into the detail. When the difference I see when I sit with a re-recording mixer abroad, there's a point where you start forgetting microphones. Then you start hearing rooms. You see? Because it is a room that makes a dialogue a speech. It is a speech that affects you as an audience. It is that understanding that makes a difference. I don't think we take that seriously as far as dialogue recording or dialogue exposition or dialogue treatment is concerned in Indian cinema. sadly, even though we are a very dialogue-oriented filmmakers, you know, our spoken dialogues tells a story. Sad.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, please.
My name is Jai Shankar and I build studios. I would like to ask you about what small studios can do today and what they cannot. For example, I've seen the room, your studio at one point. I'm asking what is the role of small studios in surround mixing right now? What is possible and what is not possible?
You mean project studios?
Yes,
Project studios.
smaller studios.
My studio is not a project studio. In fact, IRA called me and they said, sir, we would like to put your studio into one of these award categories. I said, so what are the award categories that you have? They said, X, Y, Z. I said, my studio does not belong to that category at all. Because my studio is my working space. That's where I design. My studio is set up to my taste, you know. So I have a THX certified room, which is the one and only room in the country. I have speakers flown in from George Lucas's company, including the cables and wires and connectors. And I have tuned my room to the Dolby digital specs. You know, I have a CP650, 750 sitting in my room for controlling. And I have Atmos feasibility. I have Oro feasibility. And I'm working on a new format now for new Shankar's film. So don't look at my studio as any specs, any category, because that's my working space. When I am designing in those, working in that place, I don't want meter is running. I'm doing a creative work. I don't want the meter running. So I have told my producers, when you come to me, I am trying to give you the maximum number of hours that the film deserves, or the maximum number of hours that I want to spend in your film. So I will work at my pace. I will work in my hours. Nobody has to come and sit with me here. No, sir, somebody from production will sit and log hours. There's no need. You know, we have done away with all that 10, 15 years ago now. So, my studio is fully capable of doing a film mix. But I don't do that. You know, the whole conceptually, how a studio like my studio, or Fireflies, for example, you might know Satish PM, with whom I began, you know, putting up sound design rooms, and me and Satish set up the first sound design room in the country, which is Fireflies. When we did that, it was driven by one thought. The thought is, a director is capable of telling a cameraman that I want to use a 50mm lens for this shot, or an 80mm lens, or a 100mm lens for a particular shot. He does not have the understanding to tell me that I want to use a shotgun microphone, or a long gun microphone, or a Shrubs microphone, or a Nyman mic, you know, or a modular microphone. He doesn't have that understanding. He has understanding of the lenses, but he doesn't have the understanding of the microphones. Depending upon which microphone that I am picking up from my bag to capture that sequence, the perception of his image has changed. And that call, he has no clue, or he has no take in that call. I have taken that call. So when a reel has been given to me, I feel I need, or I deserve, a listening session. This is how I perceive the sound of your film. You can take it or reject it. But I deserve that one hearing. And I set up that one hearing in my room. That's what I have set up my room for. That I have an idea about the sound of your film, and I'll create that. I'll pan it, I'll process it, you know, I will create the texture, and I'll play one reel to you. Tell me what you like and what you don't like. Because end of the day, we have to further his vision. So that is how I set up my room, and just for that purpose. I don't do any serious mix, but there are films that has
Sorry, sir,
no.
may I ask what percentage of your work do you do in your own room and what percentage do you do at an actual mix stage?
I'll tell you project-wise. I mean, last film that I've done, Love Sonia, I did 3 months of sound editorial, including the sound design, which is an Atmos film. I also did all the music mixes. 10 days of final mix in a big Hollywood room. So you can imagine how much I trust my room. And so I have all the plugins in the world. I have tons of plugins, okay? And I use a lot of plugins. I am not scared of it. There are people who just get, they freak out when they see number of plugins. Because they think that it's going to change, The natural tone of the film will change because it has to change because every sequence, every shot is manifested. Every sequence is perception is manifested by me, and I will use it to my fullest advantage. But I'm not an unreasonable man, I think my knowledge of technology, I use it to that advantage. But I also leave sequences untouched, So it depends on film to film. And I go stage by stage. First, I go through the dialogue. If I have recorded the dialogue, I edit. I spend 3 to 4 weeks just on dialogue, pulling out the right takes and pulling out the right microphones and choosing them and having it laid out. Then a next step is for me to create ambience layers. I know how much of, suppose certain sequences require denoising, then I layer it up. So I keep, actually I don't do much of denoising these days because I know that I can, with so much of, so many speakers all around you, available to you in the format, I can actually mask many a times. I don't need to do much of processing. And actually I hardly process sound unless it is for the purpose of the film. And then I work on music, then I work on the sound design. I do record all my Foleys myself because I want to have a control over the texture of the Foley, because Foley decides a lot of the nature of the film. Then everything comes together in my big room, and I sit with my boys, and I go through everything, and I do relative levelings, and I pan, and I create the atmosphere of the film. And then I go into a final mix room. So when I go into a final mix room, my dialogues are leveled. The dialogues are chosen the way I want to be heard it in a film. My Foleys and ambiences and sound design has been laid out, played it to the director, played it to the stakeholders, the way I want to hear it, incorporated their corrections. Then when I'm in the mix room, there's no confusion. Oh, that sound is not there. This sound is not there. In the mix room, I am a composer. I work with the re-recording mixers. Generally when I'm working in Hollywood, I have 2 or 3 mixers with me. One FX mixer and one dialogue music mixer. I have a music editor with me. And in the last film that I've done, I myself was a music editor. And Vijay did some of the music recordings because it had a lot of Indian elements which I myself recorded in India. And did a Atmos music mix. And I realized that in Hollywood, people don't do that. One person does not have that kind of expertise, that a sound designer is able to do a music mix, not heard of, or the re-recording mixer is able to do a music mix, an Atmos music mix, like the way a music composer's mixer would be able to do it, So it's very compartmentalized. And in the mix room, I am more like a composer, who is trying to protect the story of the film. I forget myself as a sound designer, what has been composed and put together. My boys often complains with me that I don't protect their work, but I protect the film. So yeah, that's the nature of work. What is required in a project studio? I really don't know. What is that project studio set for is something that a person should have a vision about it. I deal with, I mean, to be very frank with you, you had a great music session, with all due respect to them. In films, we deal with a lot of trash. And that trash basically and mainly come from music. Very, very sorry to say this. Because what happened when the digital technology came in, that everybody could do a recording. Everyone is a recordist, engineer. They can do the recordings in their bathrooms. And that'll come to you for an Atmos mix. And they don't realize it. When they're doing a stereo mix, everything is collapsed into 2 speakers. Okay? And each layers itself will mask it. The moment I spread it out in a surround mix, every mistake comes out. There is an umpteen number of times that I have sent back the mixes back to their rooms. And the composers come back crying, saying that we don't have it. A very famous film that I've done, the singer's voice is sounding like as if it is recorded with a pilot microphone. You know the microphone that pilot speaks? It sounds like that. And extremely noisy, like channel hiss. And in a 2-track mix, you don't hear it because it's masked. The moment we put it back into surround, I hear everything. And finally, I was told it's a Pakistani composer, nothing against that country, and he was traveling in the US. I had to call him, I had to stop the mix. I said, this is trash, I can't use it. And finally, he has come on board. I said, what did you do? What did you do so that your voice track is so bad? I just want to know, to learn from you. And he actually said it was recorded with the pilot mic. That is a level of, and the song is a huge hit, you know. So now the song is a huge hit. Somehow can we do something with it? There's nothing called somehow. In a film, a song is a part of the narrative. When you sell music, it is an isolated entity. You know, when we were mixing PK, there was a song which is not part of the film at all, which Bhushan wanted to, include it in the album, and so me and Raj, I think Donald had done some of the. Do you want to wind up? Okay. I think some of the. Well, I'll come back to you. So this song has no meaning. It is not a part of Shantanu's work. It is outsourced from somebody, which he wanted to put it on the album, so that album can be sold a number of times more. So when it came in the album became a hit. Then he said, now that this song is a hit, we have to put this in the film. Now, a song which is not even a part of the original thought had to be put in the film. I'll tell you the song if you watch PK, and when he's been thrown out into the rain after he's been caught by the Swami, that song. It had some recording in some project studio that came to us. We had to go on, redo everything. So quite often it happens. Sorry, you were asking me something.
Check. So myself, Shankul from Nasik. I'm primarily a film background musician and a guitarist. But my question is, how does a sound engineer approach doing SFX for something which is not real? For example, Batman's Batmobile or Batman's Batwing. It doesn't exist in reality. So how does a sound engineer approach doing SFX for things like that?
There's a lot of conceptual elements comes in. Like the first and foremost thing is, where do you want to project the film? Where do you want to pitch the film? What is, like films like that, for example, is larger than life experience. Why do people go to theater? I mean, you have home theaters and you have Atmos and everything in your home today, in these days. You spend 5,000 rupees, you get a home theater system. Why do people come to theater? That they experience what is larger than life. So conceptually, the approach would be, how can I make it larger than life, yet believable. You know, we will do anything for that.
One more question. Now that MP3 is obsolete,
Sorry?
MP3 is obsolete now because it's done. So
Is it?
yeah, it is.
Is it obsolete?
Matlab, not in masses, but for license wise, it is obsolete. So which format do you think should take over instead of MP3?
I'll tell you a story. We were in States. We were in a music school, a selection of students. Okay, so we played. We given them a track to listen, and one was MP3, one was broadcast wave, and the other was 4824. One was broadcast wave. It's in 44.1, 16, and 4824. And you know what 99% of the students chose? MP3. Music students. MP3. Then I started wondering why. What is it that a music ear is not able to listen? It is a convenience over quality. That's what they heard in iPod. That's what they are used to. Why a DVLH speaker is costing you 2.5 lakh? It's only Wi-Fi speaker in the world, which has won like more than 150 awards. It's a Wi-Fi speaker, which gives you a true studio with one single unit. It gives you a fantastic sound, full-bodied sound in a Bluetooth transmission. What would be the bit rate in a Bluetooth transmission? 8-bit, 12-bit. A speaker is able to give you a full-bodied sound. That costs you 2.5 lakh rupees. 4,000 euros. You know, 3,000 euros, 4,000 euros, 5,000, 6,000 euros. The gold series is 6,000 euros. So people are working. So the concept of quality is convenience now. I have no clue what is tomorrow's format. I have no clue. If I can store 10,000 or 20,000 pieces of music in my iPhone, you know, I was dealing with a problem the other day on an iPhone. I couldn't back up my iPhone to my laptop. I called up the Mac guys and asked them, so what is it? So the storage of my iPhone was more than my Mac HD drive. So I said, both the products you designed, what did I do as sir, but we didn't know, no, the phone is going to grow like this. So if you experience problem, your iPhone 7 is not being backed up, you can't sync it with the Mac HD, just remember, go back and change your Mac HD to a higher space. So consider space is like, I have worked with 2 GB drive in an Avid system with Avid Audio Vision, 2 GB. 2 GB was like huge for us. Now 2 terabytes, I give like 20 terabytes to my boy and say that back up all the recordings. He comes back after 3 days, says, sir, it's over, I need 20 TB more. I said, what? So the space is no constraint. So I would like a 32-bit floating, bit rate to have a music track to be stored and I can hear it. Is that it?
When an artist is articulate, is then you know that he's a master. And we do have in Resul, as we have all seen, he has won the awards, and he has shared his knowledge today with you. And on this platform, I mean, we are really proud that all his art, after all, recording is an art, and we have the Indian Recording Arts Academy Awards today, this evening. And recording as an art, I have yet to see somebody who has been as articulate as Resul. And he is a master amongst us. And please give him a masterful applause, everybody. Thank you, Resul. And I hope you will visit this platform again.
Yeah, sure. Wherever students wants me to, I will be there. you know.